So this week we're going to be talking about the upcoming federal budget. First, what kinds of things can we expect in the upcoming spring budget? Second, what are some things that you would hope to see but are perhaps a little bit less likely?
This budget is potentially not just a budget, it becomes their election platform. So this is going to be a very political budget process, and it shapes up to be an interesting one because the approach of the government to this point through the pandemic has been about keeping people whole. So it's been about CERB benefits. It's about supports for businesses that are losing income, different universal programs that groups can access so that they can stay whole and that we can keep liquidity in the economy.
Completely agree with you, Dennis. I think it's going to be a big budget with a lot of spending, and that's going to be how they differentiate themselves going into an election. I'm not sure we're looking at an election in the spring, but I agree that I think this is going to be the basis for their policy platform. This will be the budget that is campaigned on.
In my opinion, one of the most important areas that the federal budget should focus on, and I expect to focus on, is on tourism recovery. And it's pretty well known that the tourism sector has been one of the hardest hit by COVID-19. Their revenues are mostly seasonal, and they're the last sector that's going to be able to recover. I also think that it's one of the sectors with the strongest potential to be a key driver when it comes to economic recovery. So what I think is important now as the government looks towards developing its plan for recovery is leveraging tourism attraction products to stimulate economic and touristic recovery.
Yeah, I think just to build on what you were saying there, Robert, a strong national air system is important for a recovery, and we need to get people out on planes exploring the country in 2022 again as well.
One of the things I'm going to be looking for, and I know a lot of folks in the non-profits and the charitable sectors are going to be looking for some sort of aid package for their causes, as the disposable income for Canadians has become scarce. With people losing their jobs and worrying about paying their bills. So Ontario had a component for francophone nonprofits in order for them to stay open, through the lean times. And I know there are probably the same issues across the country with the nonprofits and charities.
We've thrown out some ideas on here: the tourism sector, the airline sector, others that need help, and I think that's what Canada needs coming out of this budget. But I think there's other strategic areas. The tech sector is a huge one that can be a big part of the future of Canada's economy and Indigenous people too. So I'd like to see some strategic investing coming out of these spending plans from the government.
And what do you think it will take to secure the cooperation of perhaps the NDP or even perhaps the Conservatives?
I think the only wild card on whether this budget would pass or not, as we know what the Conservatives are going to do, they're going to vote against because there will be the spending in itself just disqualifies this budget for them. The Bloc Québécois, Yves-François Blanchet, is on record as saying that Justin Trudeau has lost the moral authority to govern. So the only wild card in this whole exercise is the NDP, whether they are ready to jump into an election, whether financially or organizationally, or will they do what they've done in the past and in this parliament, which is cut a deal. It's all essentially on the NDP, whether we have a spring election or not.
I've always thought that the wild card of an election would be how the vaccine rollout goes. If it turns into a catastrophe, I don't think the Liberals want to go into an election on that, because that would be the prime topic of the election.
The Liberal government may be buying themselves some time here. I don't believe we'll see a budget dropped in the month of March. That being the case, with the Easter holidays the first week of April there, we're looking at a budget that might come in the second or third week of April. This is a time when vaccine ramp-ups are going to be coming up through Q2 deliveries. And we're going to see the weather getting nicer. We're going to see attitudes starting to change. And if the NDP are going to be the harbinger in calling an election, Liberals certainly are buying themselves some strategic timing.
And I think a lot of people are predicting a June election, which, for partisans out there, at least you won't be freezing your, what's off putting up signs. So it's nicer in May and June than it is in February and March.